Before I begin this video, I want to tell you that I'm using this MD Computers website. This video is not sponsored by them. I'm just using their website because the prices listed here are closest to MSRP. So that being said, let's start with the video. Topic of the video is Intel versus AMD in 2022. If you're building a PC, you obviously need a CPU or an APU, and when we're speaking of x86 based processors, we have two players, Intel and AMD. Intel is basically dominant for quite some time before AMD released the Zen 2 and then just ate away a lot of the market share. Why was that? Because Intel for quite some time, for example 4th Gen 2 all the way to 10th Gen, was just releasing 4-core 4-thread, 4-core 8-thread processors, and while the generations came and went, the performance did not increase a lot because of the same 14 nanometer node that they are producing all of these processors on. But the prices did increase, obviously. AMD, on the other hand, with the release of Zen 2 series of processors, basically gave us more cores and more threads, 6 cores, 12 thread, for example, with a lower price point. So that's the reason why processors like the 3600 or 3600X were a huge hit in the market, whilst the Intel CPUs were stagnating and basically had reached saturation at one point in time. Is that still the case in 2022? No, I don't think so. Why? Because with the release of Rocket Lake and now even the latest Alder Lake, Intel has brought the fight back to AMD, especially when we're comparing it with Zen 3. There are a lot of things that the Rocket Lake and Alder Lake CPUs are already outperforming the Red Team counterpart. So in this comparison, I'll just be taking Rocket Lake for the sake of simplicity, so that we don't have to deal with Alder Lake's P and E cores. All right. So when we're speaking of AMD's Zen 3 architecture, why I think that the situation is not like when Zen 2 was released is because the entry-level processor in 5000 series is 5600X. And when we say 5600X is entry-level, that means that there's no cheaper alternative in Zen 3. Anything else like 5800X, 5900X, you're going to be paying more for that, obviously. And if you want a cheaper CPU or an APU, you have to go back to Zen 2. Intel, on the other hand, is already winning in that situation. Why? Because when we're speaking of Rocket Lake specifically, it already has processors like 11400F, 11400, which cost a lot cheaper. So you get these processors, for example, 13,000, 14,000 rupees here in India. As far as 5600X, which is an entry-level Zen 3 processor, this is 22, let's just say 23,000 rupees. Roughly translate to $300 US dollars. And the MSRP of this thing is $299, again $300. So here and there some taxation and import duty and stuff, that is understood. It's not like 6-7 months back when all of these were selling for 28,000 rupees because of scalpers, obviously. Now that situation is pretty fine, so we are getting close to MSRP. The point here is that you're still paying $300 or 23,000 rupees for an entry-level CPU, and let's say that a user has that incentive to spend on this much. What is the Intel competitor? So the Intel competitor is 11600KF. This costs let's say 20,000 rupees, and it's cheaper. It's the same processor, 6-core 12-thread. In fact, in some ways better. Why? 5600X base frequency is 3.7 gigahertz, and this guy comes with 3.9 base frequency, 3.9 gigahertz. So you're paying less and getting more, basically. And some AMD fanboys might say that, hey, the 5600X has a better TDP, it's more efficient, and it's less power hungry than the 11600KF. That's right, but the amount of money that you're saving here, you can always invest that on a better cooler, because with the 5600X you're getting the stock cooler. This is the Red Stealth cooler, which is not too good. So obviously even if you're buying the 5600X, I would highly recommend you to go with another cooler unless and until you're really on a budget. For the 11600KF, I don't think you get a cooler with that, but the point here is the amount of money that you're saving as compared to this. You can always go ahead and buy a cooler, a way better cooler than what you're getting here stock. So 11600KF is the TDP of 125 watt or whatever the wattage is. I think, yeah, it's 125 watt. It doesn't really matter now at this point in time. So yeah, maybe you need to go with a more higher wattage PSU, but that's completely something that you will be investing on if you are going with a 20 series or 30 series GPU in the future. So speaking strictly on the basis of number of cores and their base frequency that we are getting, the 11600KF is a better option in my opinion. And in fact, the reason why this is also the reason why AMD is justifying this price point is because they say you get more better performance out of it. Is that really the case? Let's see. Not really, actually. So both of these, as far as gaming is concerned, because a lot of people who are buying this i5 and Ryzen 5 CPUs are going to be gamers and are going to be people who want a sweet spot bang for the buck CPU. So you're not going with the lower end i3 or Ryzen 3. I mean, in the case of 5000 series, there's no Ryzen 3. Even in the case of Rocket League, there's no i3. But the point here is you are not going to be buying the i7 or i9 or Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9. That's very few people. That's something that very few people are going to be buying. That's the reason also why I'm focusing strictly on Core i5 and Ryzen 5. Most people are going to be buying this because this is the sweet spot, right? So at this price point, the 11600KF is worth buying as compared to 5600X. And as far as gaming is concerned, it's giving us the better performance. And obviously, since these are discrete GPUs, you're going to be pairing it with some kind of good. These are discrete CPUs, sorry. So you're going to be pairing it with some kind of good discrete GPU. So when it comes to standalone CPU performance, as you can see, 11600KF is doing better than the 5600X at a lower price point. What about APUs? A lot of APUs are really hot in the market because of the current GPU scenario that is going on. GPU shortage and everything is being sold at double the MSRP when GPUs are concerned. So you get two options. The 5600G actually, which I made a video on recently. There's a PC build video. Link will be in the description. And then there is its big brother, the 5700G. This is expensive obviously from the 5600X because it has your Vega 7 in the case of 5600G and Vega 8 in case of 5700G. When we're speaking of Ryzen 5 specifically, the competitor is going to be 11600K. It comes with a Potato iGPU definitely, but it's definitely an upgrade from the Intel UHD 630 because this comes with a UHD 750, so it's not too bad either, and it's still doable at a lower price point. Speaking of the CPUs that are there with these APUs, then basically you get your 6-core 12-thread and the same base clock frequency. So how is the 5600G not better than the 11600K? That's because the 5600G only supports PCI Gen 3. The 11600K supports PCI Gen 4 and at a lower price point, by the way. Why does that matter? Because for people who want a future-proof system and for people who want a system that is going to be using a lot of PCI Gen 4, for example, you have motherboards that are going to be supporting, for example, on AMD's side you have X570s and on Intel's side you have, for example, the Z590 motherboards. All of these support PCI Gen 4 and you are going to be using these motherboards to also use your PCI Gen 4 SSDs. And once you get your hand on the 30 series NVIDIA GPUs, those are also PCI Gen 4. If you get this guys thinking that, hey, I have an APU right now and I'll take care of the GPU later on, a discrete GPU later on, that's not the case because you will be stuck with PCI Gen 3. On the other hand, with 11600K, you will still be able to leverage the PCI Gen 4 that it supports later on when you buy your 30 series graphics card. So at a lower price point, you are already bringing support for PCI Gen 4, which is kind of future-proofing your system already. With the PCI, with the 5600G, not so much. So maybe you want to buy a 20 series GPU and you don't really care about the Gen 4 SSDs. You are fine with something like the 980 Pro from, just the 980 from Samsung, or maybe the WD550 from WD. Then it's fine. You can go with 5600G. You're paying more for some reason, maybe because of the better Vega 7. But at the end of the day, you are going to be pairing it with some kind of discrete GPU. Again, you have to go with the 20 series because those are PCI Gen 3. But if this is what you are planning to do, and I don't see any reason why you want to spend more money. The Intel counterpart, on the other hand, is giving you a better performance. Yes, it has a Potato iGPU. But that's the whole point of buying APU at the moment. You get something, and then later on you are going to be upgrading the GPU later on, the discrete GPU. Anyways, So with the 11600K, you will be able to leverage the PCI Gen 4 capabilities at this price point, and with the 5600G or the 5700G, you won't be able to do it. So the only 3000 series CPUs that support PCI Gen 4 are the discrete CPUs. So you have to, again, we go back to the story. And when we come to benchmarks about the discrete CPUs, I've already shown you that. When we come to the benchmarks of the APUs, you can see that the 11600K is again beating the 5600G, which I've been so much supporting till now. So in a nutshell, in 2022, Intel AMD, if you're comparing with Rocket Lake versus the Zen 3, then definitely Intel, as you can see, is a more budget-friendly option, and it's giving you similar, if not better, performance than the 5000 series processors. And that's pretty much my verdict for this. Obviously, this video is made in the first quarter of 2022, so things are going to change. But how are things going to change? Let's take a look at this. AMD has to release more CPUs in the 5000 series, and I don't see them doing this because now there are announcements of 7000 series and AM5 and this and that. If they really want to bring the fight back to Intel, which Intel already has succeeded in bringing the fight back to AMD with Rocket Lake and now Alder Lake, what AMD should do is basically get your Ryzen 3s in the 5000 series. Second, release your non-X version of these CPUs, so 5600, 5800, and then reduce the price point. If you're building new APUs, maybe get your PCI Gen 4 on these things. And also, these are your Vega iGPUs, so this is not RDNA 2 or anything fancy like that. So I don't see any reason why you should be going with AMD at this point in time, where Intel, you're getting the same things. And in fact, Intel is more compatible with just everything out of the box, Linux, Windows, stuff like that. So again, it's when we are speaking of compatibility, Intel is obviously number one. And now with the prices and the performance it's giving us, it's basically a Uno reverse card. What happened? What AMD did with Intel and Zen 2. With Rocket Lake and Alder Lake, this is just a Uno reverse, basically. That's pretty much it. If you have any extra suggestions, feedbacks, or views, basically, opinions, tell me in the comment section below. And that's pretty much it. If you have any specific reason why you want to buy 5600X, maybe the X570 chipset is offering something extra that the Z590 is not, maybe that is a case where you want to buy the 5600X. But if that's the case, tell me in the comment section. I don't think there's any such thing that the X570 is offering that the Z590 is not. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a nice day.